All right, we are going to be breaking down this hub shell, and then every one of the components that actually makes this. And then we'll put it all together. And I'm also going to be telling you the name of the components, so it makes it a lot easier when you're out servicing your bike. Very first thing, this one's held on by two 15 millimeters. This is a complete unit right here. And these 15 millimeters come off at the end. You don't have to pull them out all the way. You can just loosen them up. Same thing for this one, loosen it up, and then the tire comes off. Now, the two 15 millimeters are at the end. And the following one, you do have this guy right here, which is a 17 millimeter. Now this is an axle nut. The axle nut butts up against the spacer on this side, and on this side over here, it butts up against the actual bearing cone, which causes it to lock. Now, on this side, you do have a spacer, because it does stick out just a tad bit here, because that's where the Freewheel goes. So you have a spacer. On the inside here, you do have a bearing cone. The bearing cone is here and here. So that's going to be right there. Behind, or actually in front of the bearing cone here, you have a dust cap. That's going to be right there. And finally, you have the bearings, which are going to lay right there. And it's going to rotate just like so. Now, these are all the components that you'll have. You'll have your bearings, all right? These happen to be on a casing. So you have bearings. You have your dust cap. You have a bearing cone, which you can put a pedal wrench to it. If you're not familiar with a pedal wrench, you might want to get a 15 millimeter pedal wrench. Park Tool does make this one. It is the SCW 15. It works awesome. Then you have a spacer, 17 millimeter. Any 17 millimeter will take this apart. It is your axle nut. Very last, you have a 15 millimeter, which is going to tighten this up. And this is the final piece right there. So these three tools here, you got a pedal wrench, which is a 15 millimeter, a 17 and a 15 millimeter wrench, and you'll be able to take all of this apart. The screw that goes in between the actual hub shell is an axle. So anytime this gets damaged or anything like that, and you go to the parts store and you're like taking all this apart, you're like, hey, I have this screw, which is what I told them. I have this double-sided screw. I don't know what the name of it is, but I would like another one. And they were looking at me like I was crazy. And then I showed them when I went to the actual bike store again. They're like, oh, the axle. And they're like, yeah, we got a couple of axles. Or you can go on to Amazon or something, and you can order an entire axle, complete with both 15 millimeters on each end, both 17 axle nuts right here, spacer, and the bearing cones. Also, your dust caps, all complete, ready to install in your actual hub shell. Now, you know the parts. Here we go. We went through all these parts as well. Now, let's get ready to put this together, okay? When it comes down to it, on this side, I did do a cutout as well. You have your hub shell, you got this side, and you have the inner here. So you have the inner portion of it. It wiggles back and forth. Now, what I want for this is I want a bearing here and bearing there. Now on the back side of it, you have that dust cap. That dust cap is going to go there. You're also going to get a bearing cone. The bearing cone is going to go all the way in. All right, so once the bearing cone is in there, you can see how this is rotating back and forth. Same thing on the other side. You're going to want an axle nut right here, which is going to lock this in place. We're going to get another axle nut here, and we're going to butt it up against the actual bearing cone. But notice on this side, this is where our freewheel is going to go, just like so. So what we're going to wind up doing is we're going to put the spacer here, just like that. Then our axle nut's going to go all the way through. Now this is how we use the pedal wrench, okay? So in between where the pedal wrench is at, right here, there's a tiny little groove, and that's going to hold this in place. So you have a pedal wrench, then you have a 17 millimeter, which is going to tighten this up. On this side, it's even more essential because on this side, you have less of a clearance, and you won't be able to get a 15 and a 17 mil in there, just because for the actual pedal, it is really, really thick. And you see how this one's super thin in comparison to the actual wrench itself. They're really, really thin. Put that off to the side. So we're going to talk about it. This is how the actual hub, the internal portions of the hub look like. When you put an axle through a hub, it goes in through the hub and it sits on this small cup down here. And these are the threads that are going to spline onto the back portion of your freewheel. So the hub itself is locked in place right here, and it has an extension by this axle nut. So here are some of the components you need to know. You need to know your axle nut, your spacer, your bearing cone, your dust cap, and your bearings. And if your bearings are in a cage, or if they're just like that, like solo without it, your axle is going to spin just like so, without any resistance. Okay? If you know how the shell works and everything, and you actually find a problem, you can actually fix that. You got everything functioning, and it's moving like right along. The bearings look nice, and everything's spinning. The very last thing, we'll put this on the wheel. This is going to come on the other side. This is what we're looking at as a fully assembled model. We have I'm going to call these the lugs, okay, because these are the ones that attach the actual hub to the actual wheels. So we have the lugs, we have the axle nut, we have the spacer, we have the bearing cone, we have the dust cap, we have the bearings, and the bearing cage. All right, the hub. Now on this side, we come through the axle. The axle is the screw going all the way through. And we follow the axle all the way to the other side. We have bearings, a cage, a dust cap, a bearing cone, axle nuts, and we have a lug nut. So that's the entire assembly of our hub.